Hello, what's up everybody? How is it going? Welcome to another video of tutorial series learning Codeigniter from scratch. In the last video we covered how to list the news from the database, and today we'll be dealing with adding new news using forms. And let us just quickly check what we did last time. So localhost CI, we had an admin panel where we were allowed to log in using admin detail from the database. We completed our news listing, so we listed our news, and today we'll be creating a link that will take us to a form that will allow us to add new news to the database and list it in the same page. So let us see how we can do that. Let me quickly open my Sublime, grab my CI folder. So it's in application, amps, www, and my folder is CI. Okay, so let me just maximize this. Application, controllers, inside admin we had news controller where we had created an index function to list out all the news. Now before we begin with adding new news, I would like to tell you that instead of loading modal inside each and every function that we are going to create inside news controller, if we just load this modal at the end of this constructor like this, it will now work for each and every functions below. So generally, if we are using something frequently, we can load it in auto load, or if we are using something frequently within a class or within a controller, we can load it inside the constructor of the controller, so that it is automatically loaded for each and every functions that we are about to use. So we are going to use news modal in various places, like while saving the news, while updating the news, while deleting the news. We'll be using the modal, so it's always better to load the modal in the constructor. Secondly, let me now create a function to add new news. But before that, we had created a file listing page or news listing page inside admin and news, right? So this was the page where we listed our news. Now again, I would like to mention one more thing. It is not so necessary, but it is always a good practice to have a separate folder for each and every controller, because there are certain lists of tasks like adding news, editing news, maybe listing news. So there are various files responsible for a controller, view files. So if we create a folder for each and every controller, our code will be somehow managed. There are other processes as well, but for now what we can do is we can create a new folder and we can call this news. And it's not a good practice to have a capital or uppercase in the views folder, so I just want to rename it and change it to lowercase news. So this will be the folder where we'll be putting all the views related to the news. So what we can do now, we can just rename this news to list maybe. So what we can do here is, so all of the functions or views related to news, we'll be putting them inside the views folder inside admin, which is inside application, views, and inside admin we have a file called news. Let me just copy this, cut this, and paste it inside news. Now I don't want to call this news anymore, because now we have a separate folder called news. So I want to rename it as, since this is the index page, the index function, so it is again a good practice to have the name of the view file same as the function. So by saying this index.php, we are trying to say that this view is responsible for the index function of the news controller. So the controller, we can have for each controller we can have a folder in a view file representing the controller, and for each function we can have a file name with the same function or some name that gives some good meaning. or we could also have called this list.php because it is listing the news, but since I'm using the function index, I'm just calling it index. Now instead of loading the view admin news, I will call it admin folder, news folder, and index view. This way. Let us just refresh to see if everything is working good. Yes, so it is working. Now for add.php, now what I want to do is I want to open the index.php. Let me just remove this file. I don't need this anymore since we have already moved it to index.php. Now after giving the heading, I want to have an anchor this way that says add new news. Let us see if we got our anchor. Yes, we got it. And let me also give some class to make it look a little bit good. So btn dash, let me just call this info. Let's see, we have our button here. Let us just give some spacing below the button. In order to, I just like to use hr tag. So hr tag will give some spacing on the top and give some spacing on the bottom, and a horizontal rule over here. So add new news should now open a form for us. So in order to load the form view, I'll just call a URL called echo site underscore URL. So inside our admin folder we have news controller, and I would like to call a function called add. So inside news I have to create one function that's named as add, and inside this function I would like to load a view, this load view, and inside my admin folder of views I have a news folder, and add.php will be responsible for this form. So I'll inside my admin folder, inside views I have a news folder, so I need to create add.php to load this view, right? So I'll create a new file and call it as I'll call it add.php. Now just like we loaded our header and footer in each and every view file, I will again load the header and footer in add.php so that our look and feel is consistent throughout the project. So I'm loading the header, I have loaded the footer. Now I need to write some code in between header and footer. So I'll give h1 tag and name it add new news. Let's see if everything is working. Refresh this, click on add new news. It's giving me the heading add new news. Now I want to load a form below it, so let's create a form. There is a function to create a form in Codeigniter, but I prefer using HTML tag instead of the function of Codeigniter, because it is not always too friendly to a designer who is designing the project for us, because we as a developer might know the function that is associated with the Codeigniter, but the designer who is building our site might not be aware of all the functions inside the Codeigniter, so it is somewhat hard for them to add some classes or give some designs if we are using functions. So rather we can just use HTML plain tag. But if you want to know how to load the form using Codeigniter, you can just go through the documentation, and it's not so hard. We have a form helper which will help us to start the form, add some HTML attributes to it like action and method, and if you want to add some other HTML attributes like ID and classes, we have a process for that. You can just go through the form helper of Codeigniter, but that's not so necessary for this tutorial series. So let me just give action. I would like to name it as, let's say, echo site underscore URL. I want to save it to submit the form to admin, and I have a news controller, and inside news maybe I will create a function called save. Okay, so save will be responsible to save our news. So we'll create the save function shortly, but before that let me create some input text. So inside my div class equals to form group, I will create some input type equals to text, and this is for the title, so I'll give the name title and give some class here. Class equals to btn dash no, not btn, class equals to form dash control, and also I would like to use let's say I don't want to give this full width, so I'm using a class called div class equals to col dash md dash maybe 7, just to give 7 out of 12 width, and we can have labels for this. So inside form group, what we can do is we can create a row, div class equals to row, and close the div, and I can have two divs here. So div or label, maybe label, and give the label called title over here, and I would like to give a class called col-md-3 for the title, and I want to create a div over here, div class equals to col-md, let's say 9. Okay, now just close the div right here and give some enter this way. So label div, I want to give a clear fix after div class equals to clear fix. Also after col-md7, am I missing a div somewhere? So this is div for this, this is div for this, this is div for this, and this is div for this. So class equals to col-md7, so this must be the div for class col-md7. So div class equals to clear fix. I think that will do it. Now I would like to copy this div over here, form group, and make another field called author for author, 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 and create another form group for description, and instead of writing input type equals to text, I would better use text area for this. So text area name equals to description, and class equals to form dash control. So what were other fields that we need to show in our form? Let me just check quickly. So CI news, we have title, description, and author. That's it. So let us create a submit form now, submit button. So input type equals to submit, name equals to, let's say, submit, and I would like to give class equals to btn and btn dash info, and also I want to give a value for this, and value would be save. Let's just save news. Let us see our form if everything is looking good. So here is our form. So title, author, and description. Once we type in this and hit save news, it should now save to our database. Let's see. Now this form is submitting to admin news controller save, which is the news controller is here. So I need to create a function called save, since we are submitting the form to save. Now inside save, what we need to do is we need to call a model, because in order to insert entries to the database, it is again MySQL operation, so we need to create a function inside model and call that function inside this controller. So our model is inside models and news model is here. So you might call create a same function here, save. So what will this save do is first of all grab each and every entries from the form as it is being sent as post. So you can see here inside add we have method equals to, I only have action, so method equals to post, right? So we are posting all this data to news. So let me just grab it. So first of all I need to grab my title, which would be $this input post title. As I told you last time in previous videos that in order to grab entries in CI, we don't use $_post because it has because this input post performs more action like filtering the or getting rid of MySQL injection. So we better use this input post. So in order to grab author, this input post author, and for description we can use this input post description. Okay, now in order to save entries to database, what we can do is we have a function called this db insert, and this expects two parameters. The first parameter is the table name that we are about to insert data into, and our table name is news, right? And the second parameter is the array that we want to push to the news, whose index should be the field name and whose value should be the values that we want to save to the database. So instead of writing grabbing each and entry in variable, what we can do is we can create array this way. So I would like to assign ARR title, assign this title into ARR title, and similarly I would like to assign author's name in ARR author and description inside ARR description this way. So we have a set inside array. The set has field names in its index and the values in their respective values. So what we can do is we can pass this array as second parameter this way. So once we've done this, it will insert our news to the database. So let us just insert. Now in our news model, I just need to call this function in order to insert our entries to the database. So what I'll do here is I'll just load the model is all loaded over here, so I don't need to load the model again. So I just can call the function of that model this way. So news underscore model, and my function is save, and once I call this function it will surely save it. Now after saving it, I want to redirect my function back to the listing so that the user now gets to know that his entries has been saved and is now successfully being listed in our listing page. So I want to redirect the user to the index function. So in order to redirect user to the index function, I'll just call the function called redirect, which is a function inbuilt function of Codeigniter, and my index is admin/news/index, right? So this will redirect the user to the index function. Let's see. Let us give a title called sample title. Let us give author as Anwar Ali, and my description would be sample description goes here. Save it. You can see our news has been listed here, right? But what I would generally want to do is I want to show my latest news on the top and my older news on the bottom, right? So what we can do here is, while grabbing the news from the database, we can sort it as per the ID, right? So latest ID, the ID with the higher value should be shown on the top, because if you see our database, we can see that inside news the ID 8 is the latest news and ID 1 is the oldest news. So I want to show 8 on the top and 1 on the bottom, right? So I have to sort these entries as per ID, but in descending order. So in order to do that, inside our index function we are calling get all. So I would like to go to get all, and I want to order this in descending order with respect to ID. For that, before calling the get function, we can call another function that says this db order underscore by. So order underscore by is a function that allows us to pass in the field name and sort it as per we want. So I want to sort it by ID, but in descending order, so give a space and DESC. Okay, so let's see now if our sample title is being shown on top. So yes, we have a sample title on the top, and the Italy votes in uncertain election, which is ID number 1 on the bottom, right? So 1 on the bottom, 8 on the top. So we have our latest news on the top, so that as soon as user adds any entry to database, it now gets listed on the top, and this is exactly what we wanted. So this is the way how we insert data into the database. Now I want to cover one more thing before we leave today, and that is showing flash messages to the user. Okay, so once we submit our entry to the database, I want to show a message over here that says news has been uploaded or saved successfully. Okay, so we have a function called or a process called flash data in news, which is one of the function of session library. So once we save the news, I want to create a flash data. So there are two types of data in the session. One is the user data and another is the flash data. So user data, it lasts until we destroy the session, right? So if you go back to the login controller, you can see that once the login is successful, we set a user data using the function set user data, and until and unless we destroy the session using ses_destroy, which we did inside dashboard controller for logout. So ses_destroy destroys all the session user data, right? So now there is another type of session data that is known as flash data, and it automatically gets destroyed once it has been used in some places. So once the message has been shown, if we refresh the page again, the message is gone already. So we just show flash data once, right? So in order to do that, what we can do is we can just first of all create the flash data this way. The method is exactly the same. So this session set underscore, instead of user data, we'll now say flash data. We'll give a name for flash data. Let's say we can call it success. The name is success, and the value is, let's say, news saved successfully, right? So now we have created a flash data called success, and inside our success we have written news saved successfully, correct? Now since after, and one more thing, that flash data will only show after the redirect has been made. So in order to show flash data, we have to check to see where the URL is redirecting to. So this flash data will now show in this URL wherever we are trying to redirect our page to. Okay, so our redirection is towards admin index, admin news and index, right? So now we have to go to admin news index, which is this function, and this is loading the view called admin news index, which is views admin news index. So now we have to show our flash data in this view because our function is redirecting the user to admin news index, which is loading this view. So in order to show the flash message, now we only have to do something like let's say echo php echo $this session flash data. Now flash data, the name of the flash data is success, right? So if we just do echo, it automatically checks if there is some value in the success flash data, and if there is, it will just print it out, and if there is nothing, it will just let's say ignore it. Let's try to see. We don't have any flash data right now, so it is just ignoring it. But once we add new news, let's say title, another title, and author is, let's say, my name, description is another description. Let me save this news, and you can see a message is now being shown here that says news saved successfully, because we have just printed it here. But now if I refresh this again, you will see the flash is gone, because flash only works once. Now if I want to display it in some design, like if we go to bootstrap alerts, don't go to WC School, just go to bootstrap here. So we have some good layouts for here. So in order to alert this green type of for success, we have a function called div alert success. Just copy this small div over here for green, and we can place this flash data inside our div, right? So just I mean Control Z over here. So I'll just copy this and place it inside here. Okay, let us try once again. Add new news, testing, testing, save news. So we have our testing here, and a flash data is being now displayed in a perfect div. But there's one more problem. Now if we refresh the page, the flash data is gone, but the div is still there. Why? Because though the flash data is not set, the div is already there, so it is showing some let's say green background. Now in order to remove that green background, if our flash data is not set, what we can do is we can just check to see if we have flash data set before displaying it. So we can have a if condition here that says if we have flash data, only then we will display our flash message. So I'll just wrap up this div by our if condition this way and close my div over here. Now let's just try to refresh this and check to see. Let's add new news and give some title. Let me just give some dummy title, A, and A. Save the news, and you can see that the flash data is now here with a green background. Now if I refresh this, the green background is gone, right? So this is how we use flash data in order to show some success message, and if you want to show some error message, we can also do that. But we have not worked yet on validation stuff, so there is no error message for now, but we can cover that in future. So this was it for today. We covered our listing and we covered our add new news. Now tomorrow maybe we can cover edit and delete both, because delete won't take much time, and after we have covered up our add new news, edit will also not take much time. So there's just some simple thing that we need to understand for edit, otherwise almost everything is same. So I hope you liked the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and hit like button and share it. And if you have any confusion, you can just mention it in the comment below, and I'll try my best to answer your queries. Till then, have a nice time and have a good practice of what we learned. I'll see you tomorrow with a new topic. Goodbye.